show in the past, but I don't think that's really a big deal. There's far more important things to talk about. I'm glad you came on, and a lot of people are glad to see you on Richie Allen. I've been checking the view count on all those interviews I did with him. They keep climbing, and I've listened to every single one of them just to help me prepare for this interview. But starting off, I think we might as well start this interview off with a little bit of a debate, get it off to a little bit of a bang here. Something that you've been saying for years about how you believe humanity, there's no hope for us unless we get divine intervention. We're just not capable of overpowering the powers that should not be. And, well, people would debate that. One guest I had in the past, George Kavaslis, told me that he said in one of his radio interviews, and I asked him about it. I asked him, how can you confirm what you said, that the New World Order will never be able to take over the world and fulfill its plot to global totalitarian government? And he told me, I have felt within my heart soul essence that Mother Earth at its heart soul level is a love-based entity, and that means that anything that is negative cannot take it over entirely. Now, it can come down hard at certain times, and there are times when the New World Order came down hard, like 9/11, and after they staged Sandy Hook trying to take the guns and all that. But in the end, they'll never be able to take over because Mother Earth is a love-based entity. And many would assert, well, Jordan, we are getting divine intervention. There's more than enough people out there from an extraterrestrial contactee viewpoint who would say that there's more than enough divine intervention to keep the New World Order from taking over with our guardian angels and spirit guides and such. And, of course, I remember you saying in your In5D radio interview way back in the day, the first interview you did, that you said the key to beating the New World Order would be to pray or ask. If you don't want to get religious, maybe ask would be the better word, our guardian angels and spirit guides for help. So do you think, yes, it may make sense for you to say, yeah, we're not totally screwed because, yes, there is divine intervention, and, yes, Mother Earth is a love-based entity?
Well, it's a big subject, and I would still say that because I believe in a great spirit in the universe that other people may call God. I don't know what God is. I just know it's not on television. And but whatever God is, and I've learned a long time ago, you need to define your term. So when I use the word God, it may not be with the same thing you're thinking when you use the term God. I'm using it very loosely. I don't even particularly care for the word God, but I do believe that there is some sort of overshadowing. I guess that's a better word, an overshadowing of life on the earth we're involved in. It's not just us, but there's something else that's going on around us. And even the Knights Templars used to have a theme that they call "as above, so below." And so I think that is true. There's no doubt in my mind that that's true, that there's something going on around us in the spirit world from out there, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to the mundane physical world we live in. Too many strange and unrelated and unnatural things happen, and there's just thousands of cases. I guess everybody in the world's had strange things happen to them. And so I've had way too many things happen to me, and I don't know if you want to attribute it to UFOs or aliens, but there's something going on that is not in our physical world and our little mundane world. There is a higher spiritual presence in life, and I appreciate that, and I worship it because the word worship comes from combining two words. Worship comes from worth, W-O-R-T-H, worth, the value of something. What is it worth? And of course, ship is an English word that's used on everything from rulership and courtship and so sportsmanship and all kinds of ships. Well, so worth combined with ship, worthship. No, you just drop it and it becomes worship. So all worship means is to show a high respect or value on something, whatever it is. So when I use the word God, I'm using it so that I can be understood by most people. But I don't believe in the God, the normal way people see God. I believe that there is a higher intelligent, spiritual presence in life. And there's just too many, there's just too much evidence of that. And things don't just by chance happen. And so, I believe in the presence of a divine spirit, for lack of a better term. But I am also aware that in history, there has never been a time when some great spiritual event happened that put down the evil, the totalitarian fascist dictatorships which come and go, coming and going all the time, with warlords and war and violence, and running for one guy's running for office. We just love him. He's going to be our savior. And then you find out he's nothing but a scumbag and a crook. And then we get another one in, and he's going to save us. And then we find out, no, he belongs to the same secret society as the other guy. And eventually, over thousands of years, we've seen nothing but tragedy and chaos and violence, and throw into that mix religion, cults and military engagements. And so I just go back and look at the past 7,000, 6,000 years of man's human history. When has there ever been a time when God or any spiritual presence in the universe, whatever it is, intervened, I think is a better word, intervened in mankind's natural evolution and did something to clean up this violence and bloodshed and wars and all of the stuff that the human race has been stuck with for thousands and thousands of years? I don't see it. I don't see anything. I know that there were tales about some great lost empire, that was, maybe Atlantis or something like that, where everything was wonderful and holy and everyone was happy, and there was a golden age of man's connections to the divine. I don't buy that. I do believe that there's probably Atlantis that I think that's probably true. I don't think it was any better than we. Obviously, it was destroyed. So the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is in the 6,000 years, in the past 6,000 years, I have never seen in history anywhere where a God stepped in to protect the creation we call man. If man has such a wonderful, connection to its creator, where is the creator? More crime, white collar crime, and and drug trafficking and alcoholism and violence, and existed that at least made a stab at saying it would wanted to do was the United States of America. It was a wonderful idea, and it divided governments into three factions and made sure that not long after it was founded, as far back as 1790s, 1800s, 1770s, 1780s, and by the 1800s, we were a mess. We were having people coming from all over the world who were fighting each other within the country, and so but I don't think that maybe there's a possibility that maybe there was some sort of a spiritual intervention caused 1776 to happen, and got it started on the halfway decent road to managing the human race and bringing some sort of stability and justice to the world. But that was quickly outdone by secret societies in Europe and the royalty, who was not impressed with we calling ourselves free. Freedom and liberty and justice. There is no freedom and liberty and justice to the royalty of Europe. There is no freedom. we own you, and you crawl on your knees, and that's the way it works. And if you don't like it, we kill you. And so that's why there was a great, revolutionary war and bloodshed. And so, but I've never really seen the spirit, whoever this God or spirit that is in charge. I've never seen anyone coming from space and aliens or gods and coming to help the human family. Where is it? I've never seen it. Now you can talk about the nation of Israel and the Almighty God Jehovah and all that. That's all stories. It's all based on ancient stories coming out of the Middle East, coming out of India. Most of what we call Judaism and all of the wonderful stories about the holiness of Israel can be traced back, if you just take a few minutes to go reading, can be traced back to India. India is the parent of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All three can trace their lineage back to Hinduism. So again, I'm just stating the obvious, that when has God ever stepped in, or when has any spirit ever stepped in to help the human race? I mean, and so
well,
I don't see.
That's a fair question for you to be asking, indeed. Just I want to point out a couple of times your reception broke up, like for as long as 3 seconds on a couple of occasions. I do hope that's not the NSA or technical gremlins trying to screw around with us, but just so you know that.
Too.
Okay, but that did happen. But anyway, getting back to the interview, well, one could debate, it's pretty obvious what God is. God, the creator, whatever you want to call it, it is infinite consciousness. Now, where's the scientific proof for that statement to back up the claim that God is infinite consciousness? Well, we know that we can affect reality by either observing or measuring it, and we know that because of the double-slit experiment in Austria way back in the early 20th century. And we also know that every action that we do influences all of reality, albeit at small levels, and everything is a smaller part of the greater whole. And how do we know that? The mathematics behind the Mandelbrot set, the diagram of the Mandelbrot set. It looks like a beetle, and if you zoom in, you will see smaller and smaller Mandelbrot sets. But it goes into infinity. It's a finite area, but it goes into infinity, and that many would assert is a perfect representation of what reality is like. Therefore, you can make the assertion that God is infinite consciousness. Jordan, for lack of a better question, do you agree or disagree with that claim?
No, that sounds very reasonable, and I followed your point, and I think I would probably have to say, that's about the best I would say. I think you said it well, and so because there's a lot of science that could talk about both sides. There is no God. There is no special influence on the human race, while others. Scientists are saying, no, but there is, and Einstein saying that God doesn't make mistakes, and he doesn't play with the reality. Whatever it is what it is, and there's a science to it. And so basically what you were saying sounds about right to me. But on the other hand, what has that given to us in the past, say, 6,000 years or 7? And of course, we now know that there's life been on this earth for a long, long time. I choose to think billions of years to be. It's my belief that for billions of years there's been life on this earth. Other people, other scientists are saying, well, yes, maybe it's been 100 million years. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's been 1 billion years. But what is all, and there's no doubt in my mind, from what I've been able to talk with others who are far more, well read on this subject, about the ancient history of the human race. And there's no doubt in my mind that there's been extremely high civilizations that have existed on this earth for millions of years ago. And we are just, every now and then, we will stumble upon some sort of a artifact, some sort of an out of place artifact, or we're just now getting to openly talk about temples and great temples and great buildings under the ocean, off the coast of Cuba and off the coast of Okinawa, enormous ripples in the ocean. I've heard about the pyramid that's on the ocean floor in the Atlantic, 10 miles north of Bimini. And the Bombax is a huge pyramid sitting on the ocean floor. We know that in South Africa, when they were drilling and going down to the earth, and they're mining way, way down in strata, which is even all the scientists agree that in strata at a particular depth, way down, is in the billions of years. And yet they were finding handmade artifacts in strata, which is billions of years old. So that tells me, well, somebody was here billions of years ago because it's in the strata. And there's nobody on the earth that's questioning that the strata is 3 billion or 3.5 billion years old. Well, if everybody's agreed at that depth down, at that far down, it's 3.5 billion. Well, what are you going to say about the handmade artifacts that are being found at that depth? So there's no doubt that we've been, as far as I'm concerned, I'm totally convinced that there's been a highly intelligent, extremely intelligent, like on this earth billions of years ago, maybe hundreds of millions of years ago. Life has changed on this earth. Who knows what creatures were there on this earth 500 million years ago? So I'm just saying that it looks like the flow of evolution, or the flow of the evolving of the story of life on the earth, a big mystery, a big secret. And with God, I have no idea. So, but I do know that there's something going on. But to bring it back to today, where we live, what we've got nothing but religion all over the world. We got all kinds of cults and religions, and Scientology and Jehovah's Witnesses, and Mormons and Islam and Catholic Church and Protestant religion. We've got all kinds of religion. All of them claim to be the whole truth, and everybody else is full of bull. But what is the fruitage that has been given to the human race? What is the fruitage of so many religions? Well, look around in the Middle East. That's a classic example. Then look around in America, where you have blacks against whites, and whites against brown, and brown against all kinds of religions fighting each other, violence, drug addiction, alcoholism, wars. This is what religions, this is the best that they can come up with, is total anarchy and violence and lies and deception all over the world, in every country. So where's God in all of this? Where is somebody who's going to come in to help, straighten out the human race? I choose to say I don't think there is one. There is going to be. There hasn't been anybody come in and do anything, ride in on a white horse and save the human race for the past 7,000 years. What makes you think that anybody's going to come and help us now? I think it's we're part of an evolution of life on the earth, but I don't think we have it in ourselves. I'm totally convinced, too, that the human race all over the earth, the human race does not have the ability to protect itself. I am totally sure of that we do not have the ability to stand up as one people on the earth, as a human race, and protect ourselves from the mob, from the bankers, from the corrupt politicians, to the tyranny of the totalitarian systems of communism and Nazism and fascism, and all of the other isms that are destroying the human race and causing people to kill each other. We as humans we don't have it. We just are a mess in the history of mankind. And you would think that with the technological advancements we've made, and with all of the medical and all the rest of it, we would be more civilized. Well, point of fact, we're more civilized. We've only progressed in our ability on how to murder each other. We now can just drop a bomb and kill lots of people. We don't have to go out with bow and arrows. So, and of course, we don't even need to do that because we got government so spraying you with all kinds of poisons and giving you shots and filling you full of toxic chemicals in your food. So, where is God in all of this? I mean, I totally believe that there is a spiritual presence to all of this, but I don't know what it is. All I know is it's not on television. It hasn't got anything to do with Christianity, Judaism, Islam, or any other man-made cults, sects, and religions, which are actually nothing more than corporations and companies and money-making operations. And so if you want to really get serious, where is God in all of this? Where is there spiritual help? I choose to say there isn't. I think the only real help and hope for the human race is the human race. I think if we all got together and went back to school and learned how to read, and the government would leave the human race alone so that we could do our own thinking, and go back to school and learn again, as I said, how to read, how to think, and start educating the human race on how to live and the hygiene and how to live a clean life and a good life and raise food. I think that the human race is going to be the only thing that's going to save the human race. But if that be the case, for sure we're doomed. Because all I see around the world is ignorance, stupidity, people crawling on their knees to religions, jumping up and down and falling all over themselves in glee and happiness when a new president comes in, when the new government comes in. Everybody's happy they finally got what they wanted, and then 6 weeks later they find out no, it's the same old gang, same old group, and it's just the same. It's the same system. It's the law of gold. It's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And the people who run this world have had the gold thousands of years ago. And it's always stayed, like George Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And so today, the whole human race is being guided by a handful of very crafty, highly intelligent, and extraordinarily brilliant, evil people who know how to manipulate the human race, lie to us, trick us, get us to kill each other, get us to turn upon each other. It's disgusting, but I don't see any hope for it. I don't, I'm not easily moved by these concepts of a golden age, and the age of Aquarius is coming, and it's the dawning of a wonderful age. I don't buy that at all. The age of Aquarius, if you look at the real astrological connections that people don't bring up when they talk about the age of Aquarius. Well, first of all, the age of Aquarius, in my opinion, is not going to be here for another 430 to 440 years from now. We're in the dawning of the age of Aquarius, but the sun hasn't rose Aquarius yet, not at all. And so we're just in the we're just beginning to see the light coming up from the sun entering into Aquarius, but it's not here yet. And from all indications, it's not going to be here for another 400 or more years. And then even given that, look at the astrological connections and the other astrological influences on the age of Aquarius, and you will begin to see Aquarius, if there's anything to this idea, is going to be a horrible time in the world to live. It's going to be a very, very evil thing that's going to happen to us, and we call it the age of Aquarius. This is what Adolf Hitler was looking to do, is prepare the world for the age of Aquarius. Well, there's a classic example. It's going to be a wonderful new world order. I don't think so. The age of Aquarius is going to have a lot of incredible evil connected to it, and it's always been that way.
Jordan, I need to interrupt you there, because one would say, well, that can't possibly be the case, because Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis has asserted And one could make the argument that if Andrew Barsis says it, then the Akashic records say it. And if the Akashic records say it, then it must be true. And by the way, I'm going to get back to that later in this interview. But he has said that the Archon control system, ever since 2011, has been cannibalizing itself and cannot stop cannibalizing itself. So how can you assert that we will be set for evil when everything that's causing the evil is cannibalizing itself?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, first of all, I don't know if I even trust those. That's his opinion. That's his words. That doesn't mean that because he said it, that's God's honest truth, right from the heaven. I would argue that okay, so he said that, and that sounds interesting. We'll see, but I've been looking at it for the past 75 years, the world history, and I've never seen anything in the Akashic record or anything else that tends to make me believe that we're going to have a happy future. As far as I'm concerned, and I've said this before, the only light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming. I don't see the human race in a glorious future. Not at all. We're seeing nations being flooded with immigrants coming in with idea of how to destroy civilization, wars between the great religions of the world, food, the scarcity of food and water, and clean living conditions. If you want to be practical and honest, I don't care what somebody tells me about the Akashic record. I'm looking at the world scientifically speaking. We're in trouble. The whole entire world is in trouble, and I think we actually see that, and there are a lot of people who are now finally owning up to that there's no God coming. There's not going to be any second return of a great Savior who's going to save anybody. It's very difficult to make a return when you've never been anywhere to start with. So how are you going to make a big comeback if you never were to start with? And so when you begin to look at the religions of the world and the history behind the great cults, and that's all this is. And in fact, cults. It was the Islamic cult, the Ishmaeli cult, that we end up calling it Islam. No, it's Islam. It goes back to Ishmael, the Ishmaeli cult in the Middle East, and then the three religions, what we talk about, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all from Abraham. Well, we know. We don't suspect or think. We know Abraham never existed. It goes back to India, and all the reference books talk about the whole idea of Abraham is based on the Brahmins, and the Brahmins was in the Brahmin religion was Saraswati. So you have a Brahmin and Sarah. Saraswati was a goddess in India. So there was no Abraham or Sarah. There was no King David or King Solomon or Jesus or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There was none of these characters in the Bible and the Western civilizations, holy books. None of them ever existed. So consequently, from my point of view, if that's the case, which it is, and we're now slowly but surely beginning to figure out the fact that our religions are given to us by the same people who gave you your civilization, your churches, your government, your banks, your insurance companies, your educational institutions. They also give you your wars. And it looks like the whole entire world of humanity is being orchestrated into the mess that we are finally in, because we as humans tend to believe our leaders. We tend to want daddy or mom to take care of the bills and take care of everything, and so we can just drink our beer and watch basketball and have fun, go to the zoo, while the real people who are in control are anything but human. They don't give a damn about the human race. We're talking money. We're talking business, like the mafia. So at the top of the world, the people at the very top are very extremely evil people, very evil. And whoever rises in a dog-eat-dog world, whoever rises at the top has to be the meanest dog on the block. So when you see America as the most powerful nation in the world, how did we get here? Well, we didn't get here by reading poetry and helping the poor folks and helping feed grandmother. We got here by military. When any kind of a war breaks out, America goes in and kills everybody. We kill it all. That's how we're big. That's how we became powerful, and that's how the Catholic Church became powerful. Powerful influence in Europe. Why? Go back to the Inquisitions. Go back to what was going on back in the 12th, 13th, 14th century A.D. What was the church doing in the 1500s? My God, when you find out how many people were being murdered, their heads cut off, and children having hot lead poured down their throat in front of the parents because they would not conform to Catholicism. Incredible time of violence and pornography that the church was trying to foist on the people of Europe. And the people who fought died horrible deaths, being burned at the stake. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look at the world, not fool, not stupid. And I know that there are good people in this world. There are good people and there are good organizations. But the bottom line, after everything is said and done, the powers of this world business, like the mafia says. So I don't see the business of living getting any better for the human race. All you got to do is look around at the world, not just the Middle East. Look around at the entire world. Human race is in trouble big time. And now the problem is that you can't fix any problem if you don't know anything about it. And that's why Americans, for instance, have no power to do anything, period. Americans ultimately have no power to change anything, period. Why? Because they have no power. And power is knowledge. Knowledge is power. The American people do not know how things work. They don't know how a government works. They don't know who writes the laws. They don't know what a court is. They don't know how governments operate. They don't know where the military comes from, the military industrial complex. They don't understand anything about it. All they know is that they're told what to do, and they're frightened to death. So they do what Tiberius Caesar and the emperor wants. And the emperor is merely representing powerful secret societies behind the throne, just as Caesar in Europe was doing that. He was representing the powers behind the throne. Well, so is today. The governmental system in America, it merely represents. It merely goes out in front of and represents the figurehead. The real power is behind the throne, which is money. International fascist money that goes back hundreds of years, going back to Europe, going back to France and Germany and the UK. All of this goes back hundreds of years of powerful people and powerful families. So until America wakes up, gets an education, and the people all stand up together, and it's like we're not going to let history go on like this. We're going to stop it. Nobody's going to do anything. Nobody knows how to stop anything. Nobody even knows how would you know how to stop it. So I'm just saying that's my view. It's just a personal view, but I've been looking at the world for over 75 years, and I'm totally convinced we as humans on the earth cannot and will not ever be able to clean up our civilization on the earth. It's just not there for us. We're too formed, self-centered, egotistical, generally dim-witted. Don't have the IQ. We don't have the moral integrity and the scruples and whatever it takes for humans to stand up and say no. We're not going to let people sleep under bridges and die for starvation while military spends billions and billions of dollars on bombs to kill people. But nobody's going to do that. But they can. You'll get thrown into prison. So I'm looking at all of, like I said, I've been looking for 55 years as a science, 75 years I've been living in it. I'm totally sure, there's no doubt in my mind, that the human race cannot extricate itself from its problems because we don't know how anything works, and we've been demoralized and immoral until we are now amoral as a country. Sure, there's a lot of good people in this country who have high morals and ethics and want to help, but that's a handful. We got 350 million people, of which I would say at least 85% couldn't care less. As long as the ball game's coming on and the beer is cold and they got a job and they can drink their beer and watch the ball game and do what they want to do and go party, they don't care about what truth is. They don't care about truth and honesty and decency and legitimacy in government. Who the hell cares about that? All we care about is get the rent paid and make sure we're going to have a party tonight. We're going out to entertain ourselves at the hotel and the bars. And so, I mean, I just sit back as an old man, 75 years old, but I'm not stupid. I know where we're going. The whole of civilization is going under. And the reason why is because we've lost our way. The Bible says, where there's vision, people die. Well, the country is dying. The people are dying. We're all dying. We've lost our government. That's a long time. We've lost our job. We've lost our industry. We've lost our money. We've lost our freedoms. The only thing left for now to lose is your mind. And now, of course, we're now seeing America's losing its mind, killing people, murdering, violence, all kinds of men beating their wives and children and kids on drugs, shooting each other. The whole of this civilization in America is so corrupt and so far gone. And so thank God we've got military police, which are heavily armed to beat the flying crap out of anybody that doesn't get in line with what Tiberius Caesar has ordained for us to do. So once you begin to look at the police state, the fascism, the Nazism, the communism now in America, and the totalitarian fascist rule of the earth by secret societies and fraternal orders and powerful people, I don't see the world getting any better. That's an old man's opinion.
Well, a lot of people hope you're wrong, and let's switch gears. Just so you know, there's 16 minutes and 25 seconds left on the live feed. We could go a little past an hour if you need to finish a thought or something, but there's two researchers I'd like to talk about who have researched stuff from Earth's antiquity. Maybe take 8 minutes for each, and then maybe we can call it a show and then talk about maybe getting you on for a second hour sometime in the future. But first researcher I want to talk about, David Talbot, the author of The Saturn Myth. You've talked about in the past how you've researched his work. You think there's something to what he's saying. And of course, David Icke in his presentations has popularized the idea that Saturn's rings are synthetic and crystalline, and they broadcast some sort of energy that the moon allegedly, which is artificial, the moon, it amplifies it down to Earth to keep us in this matrix. And Norman Bergrun is author of the book Ringmakers of Saturn. He's also helped popularize that idea. But and specifically with David Talbot, the thing about Saturn symbolism, it has been said by many, including David Icke recently, that a lot of what we thought was sun symbolism is actually Saturn symbolism, and some of the things that we thought was symbolism of like something else, like the symbol of Islam, that crescent above the star. Like some thought that was the symbol of Venus, but some say no, that's actually a Saturn symbol because as David Talbot talked about, Saturn used to have like a crescent around it that was caused by the explosion with Saturn, so that has brought the idea that maybe a lot of crescent shape above like a circle or star in symbology is Saturn symbolism. So what's your take on the idea that David Talbot may be right to a great extent, a lot of things that we see is actually Saturn symbolism, and we should change our view on that?
Well, I think that, first of all, it's interesting you should bring up David Talbot because I actually helped finance with a lot of money back in the mid-'90s. I think it was in '95. And I was a partner with David Talbot in presenting a major expo, I guess you would call it, on the Saturn theory and on the Saturn work. I was in Portland, Oregon, back in 1990. I paid quite a bit of money. It wasn't my money, but I was working for a company where I had the ability to write checks on the company, and the company had deep pockets. So I gave quite a large sum of money to David Talbot. He came down. I gave him the money. Then I hosted the whole conference for him, and I sat there for days before the conference and days after the conference with David in his office, and so I know quite a bit about David Talbot and his work. And I think David Talbot's work and the work of that whole Cronia group is absolutely phenomenal. I think they are right on top of the real stuff that was going on. There's no doubt in my mind David Talbot himself was an extraordinarily brilliant researcher, author, and the people he has around him are equally as highly intelligent, and so I have nothing but the highest of regard for David Talbot, the entire Cronia organization. I helped finance one of their biggest operations, and was a host of one of their biggest projects. So I know them well, and I have nothing but high praise for David Talbot and then the entire group that he works with. I think they're really on to something, for sure. So I would highly suggest everyone find out about Dave Talbot. Go on the web and find out about his videos and his company and what they're doing. And there's a lot of research books that they have put together that you can buy from them. And so I have nothing but the highest regard for David Talbot and that whole idea of the Saturn thing. And I know personally for a long time, been very close friends with people who have worked on this kind of information, and what was his name? The ring makers of Saturn, can't remember it right at the moment.
Norman Berggren.
Norman Berggren. Right. Norman, I have sat for hours and talked about his work, and he has shown me pictures, and he had in his briefcase. We sat and talked for hours up in San Francisco. So Norman Berggren, I consider to be an extremely brilliant man, working with NASA at the time. So, and this whole idea about Saturn being possibly a dish, we know that the rings around Saturn are artificial, and from what Norman Berggren is saying, and others, not just him, but others are saying that there is something going on with Saturn. There's something happening in Saturn, that we are seeing strange things on the planet as we went by it. So, and even 2001 Space Odyssey, it talked about the moon, but actually in the book, it was about what was going on the planet Saturn. So, yeah, I think Norman Berggren's work is very important. I think that that whole Saturn idea, the whole Saturn thing is very legitimate. I'm very impressed with their work. I've always have been. That's why I gave them the money to start with, because I had been following him. That first book, The Saturn Myth, was extraordinary, brilliant stuff. So that's my feeling about the Saturn myth. I think there's a very, very, very legitimate, all the things that they are bringing out about the planet Saturn. So that takes care of that subject.
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely truth to it, too. 10 minutes and 15 seconds on the live feed. If anybody wants to listen to the show after that, they would have to call in. The number is 646-478-4747, but we're not going to go long past an hour by any means, only a few minutes. One last researcher of antiquity that I want to discuss with you. This will end this show with a bang for sure. Well, before I mention his name, I want to point out that Akashic Records reader I mentioned earlier, Andrew Bartzis, in a 15 or is it a 20-part series of interviews that he did with Lance White back in 2013. In part 2, he made a revolutionary statement that flat out revolutionizes the way we look at human history on planet Earth and also the layout of our solar system. And that statement was, Zecharia Sitchin's first 3 books are extremely accurate. In other words, yes, there is a planet Nibiru in a 3,600-year elliptic orbit in the solar system. Yes, there is a race of human-like Anunnaki extraterrestrials that come from that planet. Yes, those Anunnaki came to this Earth over 450,000 years ago and genetically engineered humans about 300,000 years ago by combining their DNA with Homo erectus DNA and used us as a slave species. And, well, I was originally very confused about this because I remember hearing some people say some very inauspicious things about Zecharia, who I know you've talked about having worked with before. And those things, 2 things in particular. Leo Zagami, a former 33rd degree Freemason, said in his Project Camelot interview that Zecharia Sitchin was a CIA and Illuminati disinfo agent who got information from the Vatican. And Arizona Wilder and David Icke's Revelations of Mother Goddess documentary, she actually said she saw Zecharia Sitchin at satanic rituals and that he was actually a shape-shifting reptilian. And David Icke said, well, maybe that is why back in 1998, Sitchin warned me in a conversation I had with him not to talk about the reptilians in my work. And I decided when I met Andrew Bartzis at a conference in Florida a couple years ago, I decided to settle this once and for all. So I went to Andrew Bartzis and I asked him, okay, and I told him everything I just told you. And I said, so how could Zecharia Sitchin have been accurate if he was literally a reptilian disinformer? And Andrew Bartzis told me, now take a deep breath, we're going to jump off into the deep end here. He told me that entities known as timeline watchers, they actually, in an attempt to disinformed humanity, intermingled with Leo Zagami and Arizona Wilder's spirit body and physical body in such a way that caused them to think they were on an alternate timeline, which caused them to believe lies about Zecharia being a disinfo agent that they thought was true. And believe me, I do wish the world wasn't this complicated, but hey, it is, and it's my job to bring this to light. And well, this is revolutionary in many ways because it changes the way we look at like the missing link and the existence of Nibiru and all that. And by the way, if anybody's wondering how the Anunnaki could survive on Nibiru when it's so far from the sun, Tolek, Andromeda Council contactee, in my interview with him, he said that Nibiru has some sort of a perpetual internal heating system that allows for life on that planet, and Nibiru has some sort of an electromagnetic shield that allows for it to survive the life on it as it goes through outer space, the far reaches of space. That changes the way we look at like how seasons on planet work, how hot or cold a planet is in relation to its whether it has anything to do with how far it is from a star. But since you worked with Zecharia, I know that this must be kind of jaw-dropping for you, and well, I can understand why they would go to such great lengths to discredit him, since a lot of people have shown research that the Anunnaki that he talked about are near the top of the ladder of the Illuminati ladder of authority, as are the reptilian aliens. They even talk about an alliance many years ago with the reptilian aliens and the Anunnaki, some do. But now that I've brought this to your attention, are you willing to like maybe change your research a little bit to accept Zecharia a lot more seriously? His work?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever followed my comments about Zecharia. I was in business with him. I actually was in business with him and helped him with his books and the sale of his books and I got Zecharia to speak on different radio shows, got him to speak at conferences. And I went with him on many occasions to his conferences. I called him back in 1990s, mid-90s, and asked him to come out to San Diego to come and meet me. I had something to talk with him about, and he did come out, and we talked about a business deal where I was going to finance a 13 one-hour television series on him, and we signed a contract and we agreed. I gave him money up front, and and then I sent him to different countries. We were going to send him to 7 countries. I think he only actually ended up going to 4 countries, maybe 5. I don't recall exactly if he went to Israel or not, but I do remember there was at least 4 countries we sent him to with our camera people, etc. So I was in business with him, and I wish I could tell you, which I would not, but I wish I could tell you some things that would turn your hair white about Zecharia Sitchin that I knew because I was in business with him and had private conversations with him. And on occasions, I've had some extraordinary conversations with Zecharia. when for whatever reason he let his guard down and told me certain things that absolutely blew me out of the chair about himself and about what he's doing and about where he's getting his information, et cetera, et cetera. And it was so extraordinary and so incredible and fascinating. But I just would not want to do anything that would cause people to think badly about Zecharia Sitchin, because I considered his work and the man himself, because I was in business with him. I knew him. And he was always a very honest, very decent, very intelligent older man who, as far as I'm concerned, knew what he was talking about. And so I have the highest regard for Zecharia Sitchin. Always have. Financed him. I gave him money and wanted to do projects, big projects with him, because I was so impressed with his work and with the man himself. I met his wife. She came out too. She stayed out with us in San Diego. So, but I would say that I do know a couple of things about him that he told me that absolutely knocked me out. I was absolutely blown away when he told me certain things about his personal life. And so, but I would not want to talk about that, because it would be too, it'd be destroying firecrackers into a fire. And, but suffice it to say, even after hearing what he said to me in private, I have the highest of regard for Zecharia Sitchin. He was nobody's fool. He knew what he was doing. And I think that people who badmouth him and who say that he was wrong on this, wrong on that, I think these people are wannabes. They wanted to be Zecharia Sitchin, but they can't be Zecharia Sitchin. They don't have the education. They don't have the background. Not the man. They never have been the man. They're the man now. They're never going to be the man. But I worked with the man. And as far as I'm concerned, Zecharia Sitchin was one of the most incredibly brilliant authors. And as far and so I have nothing but the high praise for the man and his work. But having said that, there are some really extraordinary things about Zecharia I don't think the world knows anything about. And so, but again, as saying that, knowing what I know, I still say he was absolutely sensational. I have the highest regard for him. I just know some other things about him that other people don't know. And I'm not about to talk about it because it's not really important. I'm just telling you. I had a chance to see the real man behind the scenes, work with him, travel with him. And as far as I'm concerned, he was very, very legitimate and very good at what he did. So that takes care of Zecharia Sitchin. And there's a lot of other people that I have a very high regard for that we could talk about maybe on the next show.
Yeah, I'm glad. Glad you would like to come on in the future. And I guess we might as well end the show. There's only a minute and 20 seconds left on the live feed by discussing a possibility of you coming on sometime in the near future. To tell you the truth, I would prefer to not upload. I upload all my interviews to YouTube, but I would prefer if we could wait until I do another interview and then combine this interview with that one.
Of course.
And upload it on YouTube. So,
but what I would like to say, look, I don't. That's fine. I don't care. Do whatever you want. What I would like to say is that I have a website, Jordan Maxwell Show, SHOW, JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's my website. You're hearing my voice. And I'm saying my website is JordanMaxwellShow.com. And on that, if you go to Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see above my picture, you will see a research society. All that is I now have a second website upon which I'm downloading all of my research over the years, everything, the pictures and documents and all kinds of stuff that I've never shown anyone. So if you want to be a part of the Jordan Maxwell research, go to Jordan Maxwell Show and join the research. It's called Research Society, but it's just my new research website. And so, but there's also a website out there called JordanMaxwell.com. Stay away from that. That has been stolen from me. It's not me, so don't buy anything from it and think you're doing anything with me on JordanMaxwell.com. It's not me. It was stolen from me. You want to talk to me and hear my research, JordanMaxwellShow.com. And thank you.
You're very welcome, Jordan. Hang on a second. Oh, come on. Jordan, hang on a second. Come on. Yeah, Jordan, sorry, I'm still here. It took forever for the mute button to unmute there. But, yeah, so second show, is there any way either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week we could do a 1-hour show at this exact same time?
Of course, absolutely.
All right. Wednesday work for you because that's my normal airtime.
Yes.
All right.
Yep, sounds good. You email me, email me so I don't forget.
Okay, I will definitely do that, and I will have that show.